So this is Global Trends Local Faces, hosted by CIC St. Louis and Cortex at Venture Cafe. The goal here is to take two people from a similar industry or the same industry within different companies or different segments of that industry, and to talk about, really just talk about what they're seeing. I compare it to, like I said, a conversation that you might have at a happy hour somewhere. And so, yeah, the idea being that, you know, we get to talk about some of those global trends within an industry, but with the focus on some local faces, which is great. The local faces today, you know, happen to be Sarah Hill and Tim Hayden. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a moment. And so I guess I'll start by welcoming you both. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to brainstorm and share more.
Absolutely. So yeah, rather than I know about both of your companies. I've been you know, doing my research on them, but I figure who better to give a little bit of an introduction than yourselves. And so I'd love to start by you know, just give us your name, your company's name, how long you've been at that company, and what your role is. And then I would love to, in this case, because I think both of you have such fascinating kind of like where you are right now is such a fascinating spot. I would love to hear about what you did in a past life, or like what led you to these places that you are right now. So we'll start with just kind of that kind of introduction of like, what were you doing beforehand, or how did you get into this industry? That kind of question on the back end of your intro. And really, either of you can start. There's no
Please, Sarah.
You put me on the hot seat. Happy to do it. So hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Hill. I'm the CEO of Helium. And Helium is a virtual and augmented reality product for stress management and human performance. It's a drugless, non-harmful coping mechanism that allows you to feel like you're someplace else, even when you're going through stressful situations, and also to train to improve your calm and focus. So you asked my background. My background is actually as a television journalist, spent decades in media and emerging platforms, using media as a storytelling tool, and now have shifted using media as actually a therapeutic, and more specifically immersive media. So I developed Helium for me, as well as the hundreds of thousands of people who struggle with anxiety, or they might have a poor media diet. And Helium is positive fiber for that media diet. And as far as connection to St. Louis, my family grew up in St. Louis in North County. And also a Stadia Ventures portfolio company, which we're excited to be a part of their cohort this year, and excited to chat and learn with all of the entrepreneurs and people who support entrepreneurs in this room. So it's nice to meet you.
Love it. Okay, so I will go next. Actually, I always hate coming after Sarah. Like she is literally a rock star as you get to know her. So my name is Tim Hayden. I am one of the co-founders, managing directors of Stadia. So we are a venture firm. We specialize really in just sports and esports. That's our entire, that's our niche right there. With the fund that we have, so we're actually investing out of our second fund. We have an accelerator that we run. So this is the 12th cohort. Sarah's part of our 12th cohort. So we've been doing this thing for 6 years now. I hate to say it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, except every time there's a new cohort, it gets better with even more experienced entrepreneurs. And it's just energizing across the board. And so this is our 12th cohort. We have 57 companies that we've invested in, either through our accelerator program or doing direct investment. And we do very limited of those. Those are more later stage kind of companies, again, in the sports and esports space. So my background is similar. And I love how Sarah said it, is literally created Stadia because it was a pain. Like, so I've either started or helped to start 7 different sports businesses since 2003. So launched one of the very first mobile app platforms for sports fans in stadiums, access to instant replays on demand from any network camera feed. We were kind of pirating the system at that time. Stats, infographics, where we were tied in with the team scouting systems. We ran that for several years. Before then, I moved on over and helped to launch out a couple pro soccer teams, as well as a pro soccer league. And so, as my wife likes to say, I keep falling off the wagon. I keep starting these new sports businesses. And at some point, I decided, actually, I love the opportunity to be helping founders as they kind of travel their path. Just like entrepreneurs were helping me travel my path. And so really that's how Stadia was born, of more of a pain, where really we didn't have as many mentors and people that could really help in our environment. And so we just pulled together a lot of amazing people. So the Stadia family now sits at about 6,000 strong of senior sports and esports leaders from around the world. And then obviously Sarah, one of the rock star companies that are in our 12th cohort. It's just exciting to be here.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I realized I forgot to even say my name at the intro, so I'll just mention I'm Joe Ivancic. I work at CIC St. Louis. I'm the Assistant Director of Sales, and I am really, really happy to be talking with you both. And so, yeah, without further ado, I'd love to get into the question of like, what current trends are you seeing at this time, in these unprecedented times, as they say. Inevitably, this year might lead to discussion around COVID, and it's okay if it does, but I'm curious if there are trends that you saw either before or after, or before or during, that like were different. But yeah, what current trends are you seeing right now? How is that affecting your industry or your company? And yeah, once again, we can jump back and forth. Tim, if you'd like to start this time, go ahead.
Sure. So I'll take this from an investor's viewpoint in a way, and in an entrepreneur in a certain case. So for us, this is transformative. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. This global pandemic is literally accelerating everything that we would have seen over the next decade. It's accelerated it now within months. And we always joke about, like my grandmother, who has no idea about video conferencing, is now Zooming. And it's like, and she's not going to stop from here on out. And she never would have in the beginning. And so I think those are the kind of things where you're seeing these trends, these things that are moving at even a more rapid pace than, say, a Moore's Law type of thing. For us, we look at it, especially within sports and esports. I mean, everybody was locked in for the longest time, so esports took off like crazy. Now, the fascinating thing is esports was already outpacing traditional sports in revenue generation even before the global pandemic. And so few people knew this about video gaming and esports, that from a revenue perspective, it already outpaced. Well, now it has even doubled that ability, that acceleration. We're also seeing things, and I'm not going to steal Sarah's thunder, but literally this is why we love to have her in our cohort, is because virtual reality, augmented reality, I mean, things that we were talking about, and it's kind of like, okay, well, here's Oculus and a nice thing. Well, hell, now you have to have it. Like, you're locked in, you're kind of stuck. And so the ability to communicate with people is going to be, obviously. So I look at this, even when we come out of this, and this is even internal to Stadia, where we were live, like we are hanging at CIC and doing everything in Cortex. Every company would fly in the cohort, guest speakers would fly in from around the world, judges would fly in from around the world. Well, now it's all virtual. And so at some point, as we get back to a more normal world, it'll still be blended. Like, we will still have a blended environment where we have, the ability to bring in live. But honestly, our mentors that we're seeing, I mean, we have on one team, we have the head of strategy for the NFL, we have the EVP of MLS, and we have the CFO of TeamSnap, which is one of the biggest youth platforms out there for sports. And so that's on one team, where those mentors would usually not fly into St. Louis. So I see these trends continuing to accelerate, even well past this whole COVID kind of thing.
That makes sense. I'm curious, and I want to get to Sarah here, but did it change the the types of companies that were applying for? Did you see a change in the types of companies that were applying for Stadia?
Yeah, it accelerated the numbers. I mean, again, before it was, you had to come live. So we had, out of our portfolio, we had quite a few internationals. Now it is, in Sarah's class, we have Canada, we have UK. The last one we had India and Australia. Like, the amount of talent that is out there. And I think for the audience as well, as an entrepreneur, we look at it, I know people always talk about it's a global environment. It truly is a global environment. Like, this is the moment where your customer can be anywhere and everywhere, and you have the opportunity to be able to take advantage of those chances.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Sarah, I'd love to hear from you. What, how has the current kind of moment, or what trends are you seeing that have affected your company or just the industry in general, or how is your company dealing with the trends, or kind of moving the industry forward? What would you say is happening right now?
Yeah, so certainly, just to echo Tim's comments, and we are a benefactor of the fact that, being able to bring in all that talent for us to learn. But what the pandemic has done is shrink the physical space between us, right? We can be anywhere as a company in the Silicon Prairie. When people ask where we are, we say that tiny blue dot on your phone, because, it really, geography knows no bounds. And that's a strategic advantage, I think, for companies based in the Midwest, because we know we can do it cheaper, better, faster, and don't have to have, all of the high rents. But as it relates to your questions about trends, we see a number of exciting trends. So obviously, first, the pandemic and the mental health emergency. Sadly, this is a mental health emergency right now. Calls to hotlines have doubled, and this is the stress Olympics, and not everyone is trained for it. So, as an entrepreneur, our products are uniquely positioned because they can meet that demand in a completely drugless way, where people are looking for drugless, non-harmful coping mechanisms to improve their human performance, to improve their calm and their focus. And so you have the rise of the mental health emergency. You also, at the same time, have the rise of wearables, and a huge amount of biometric data, 250 million wearables in the market. And what are you going to do with all that data? So as an entrepreneur, we're excited about that trend, because the more wearables that you add provides, more value for us as a company, because we deal with biometric data. The rise, as Tim said, of spatial computing environments. The world is no longer flat. It's becoming a place that we step into. And we're in that space because research shows that immersive media is more therapeutic than regular flat 2D media. And beyond that, the rise of 5G that is enabling more real-time data capture. And so, there isn't a lag from that data that comes from your wearable to, setting it inside a spatial computing environment. It's near real time. And that's only going to get better as, we get zero latency and have the ability to more quickly translate that data. So I think all of that, wearables, 5G, the mental health emergency, are coming together in a really unique way that, and, by the way, you don't have to be on the coasts to form, a successful technology company, is really going to bode well for companies here and the people who support those companies, because, you can be anywhere to develop great products and great technology.
I love that sentiment. I really do. It's curious, I heard you both talk about it in a little bit of different terms, but there's this concept of like data and or you could say like the data about like the revenue generation of esports versus, or the data that is collected from wearables and things like that. But it's often said that the consumers are going to tell you what they want. And so in this case, like people who are buying more and more wearables, or people who are like, the esports revenue being that high is really like kind of the indicator. There's often this question of like, well, how do you figure out what you're going to do? Or how do you figure out where you're going to go? Or how do you figure out what the customer wants? And the answer is oftentimes, to look at what the customer is saying, or look at what they're buying. And so I'm curious if there's been something that has been an aha moment for either of you that was just generated by like, oh yeah, look at what is happening. That's what they're asking for. That's what we should do. Because it kind of seems like, Sarah, to your point, I think about the mental health. I mean, such a focus of this year has been everyone's just kind of collective burnout. And so, I'm curious about like, I imagine that has been that's been good for your business in a way, but how much of that was like, well, that's what we were already kind of aiming for, is to like eliminate that and to offer this service to help, and how much of it is in almost response to that, or have you shifted it all because of that?
You want me to take that one, Tim?
Oh, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I would characterize it, and we talk a lot about mental health hygiene. So before the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of talk, all the hygiene was about physical hygiene, right? You wash your hands. And I know certainly post-COVID, Certainly enterprises are asking for products that improve mental health hygiene and improve human performance because of those issues that you talk about as it relates to stress and burnout. So for us, that's how it's shifted the conversation as, to more of a, oh, we know that's important, to know really what are you doing for the people in your circle to improve their performance, to improve their stress resilience. And some products are more effective in others. And as an answer to your question, how do we know? We talk to our customers, right? A lot, over and over again, and they give us feedback because they're using our products and informing, our future products. And we can also see that not only through subjective surveys, but we can see it through objective data from their wearables. We can see how their brain is changing. We can see how, heart rate is shifting. But very important item to talk to your customers, and that's how it has informed us to learn what they want. And we're still learning.
And if I could piggyback on that as well, because I love that is, so at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. Like, they are literally going to figure out solutions for pain, right? So, and I had this random conversation with this group last week, and one of the gentlemen was sharing was, hey, you realize that Facebook came out of the time when the phone was moving from flip phone to a smartphone. Like, it was literally Facebook, and now obviously we have TikTok and we got Instagram, everything kind of running through, but it was all because of that moment, and it was a transformational moment. And it was just a bunch of entrepreneurs, females, males, that are coming together and saying, you know what, this is a pain in my life. And so we saw that then again in the recession, and now we are seeing it even more exasperated in this global pandemic. And so part of the question becomes, hey, what is going to be the next thing because of this moment? And the other part, though, is it comes back to the basics, though. Guy Kawasaki used to be the chief evangelist for Apple and wrote an amazing book called Art of the Start. And within SLU, we used to teach all the incoming freshmen all these things about Art of the Start. And part of it was, hey, at the end of the day, there are millions and millions of business ideas, but the actual businesses are those that, there's a problem, there's a pain, there's a solution, and there's somebody willing to pay for that pain to go away. And if you're missing any three of those legs, you just have a great business idea. And so what Sarah literally has created, and these other entrepreneurs, and I guarantee some in the audience as well, is they've already figured out, I got to talk to my customers. I got to get back to the basics, and they are going to tell me, what is the pain? Like, what do I need to create? And then I need to figure out, how are they going to pay for it? Otherwise, it's just a nice business idea, and we can talk to millions of business ideas a year, but it's that it still gets back to the kernel. But it will be fascinating to see what is coming out of this kernel at this moment.
Well, that's about as good of a segue as I think we'll possibly get to talk about a little bit about the future. I'd love to hear from both of you about like where you think the industry will go. And Tim, you really did kind of hint at it. And I think, I know like personally, I have friends who are all into Twitch and have been for years. And then I have friends or acquaintances who would literally not know what Twitch was. Meanwhile, it's like the most popular platform and the revenue is out generating, but it's like, it's almost this weird, like over generating under the radar thing still. And it feels like in the last year, it's maybe done this a little bit or like it's kind of flipped. And so like, that's one that I can think of right off the bat. I'd love to hear more about that, but yeah, where do you guys see the industry going? And then, yeah, Sarah in particular, you've talked so much about this, but it truly is so important. What did you call it? The poor media diet. I mean, come on, like that's such a, I mean, we're being force fed, processed, right? And you're trying to give us a little bit more. So I'd love to hear about that, but really just anything you guys want to talk about in terms of the future. And then we do already have some questions. I am seeing the questions there, folks. We'll get to them for sure. I'm gonna read those to you as well. But if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But yeah, where do you guys see the industry going? What trends do you think will have the legs to stick around, or where will this go?
How about I'll take from the top view, if you will. So from my perspective, sports and esports will continue to converge. You're already seeing a lot of senior leadership moving from traditional sports into esports. And with that then comes all of the best practices and everything else. minus the Americanized Super League and the entire experiment that just failed miserably in Europe. The Americanized model actually works in other segments. And so esports will continue to see an evolution. The fan experience is going to be off the charts. I mean, we have been in sessions where we have seen literally what the future of the fan experience will be like. And as much as, you know, hey, it was nice for in the bubble of the NBA and NHL to have boards with all fans while they're at home celebrating as if we're on Zoom like this, the actual experience is going to be mind-boggling. And a lot of it is because the leagues, the teams, the federations have realized, the NBA said it perfectly. Well, actually, it was Real Madrid said it perfectly. Hey, 3% of our audience, our fans, are actually going to come to a live event before COVID, meaning 97% of their fans are around the world and they barely know anything about them. Now, just imagine if you are going to be able to actually experience the event. And I hate to use the Disney theme of it, but you're going to have the sights, the smells, you're going to have the feel, you're going to have the experience of actually being there. And it's still in its infancy where, hey, I can get a 360 view at center court at the Lakers game kind of thing, but it will become highly more immersive. And then the other side is it will become extremely personalized, maybe even more so than we're going to be used to. So that again, it's, you know, it is built for an audience of one. And that's where we're kind of getting to, while still layering in community, because that audience of one is going to be a very lonely environment. So those that are my current friends, hey, we can be engaging, or even, hey, people a world away that are also directly in line with Tim Hayden and everything that I have, values, everything else, teams, everything, that we're all kind of coming together as one community. So I see a lot of different like plays, but it will come down to the personalization at the end of the day.
So that's really fascinating to me, because I would say that sports, one of the main reasons that I enjoy them is the collective and community nature of them. And so the individualization there is very interesting, because yeah, it's like, you know, one of my favorite things was to go to a crowded place and root for your team. Yes. or something like that. So how do you think that will like balance out? Because I do agree that the personalization is it's cool. It's really, really neat, but will it feel the same, or how will they, or like, you know, like, will it be balanced by like, yeah, I'm still going to go to this bar and watch this game, or like, how will that work out, you know?
So and it's fascinating because it's the things that we've seen, especially from like Sony and groups like that, or especially around when Japan was going for the World Cup bid, the ability to actually have a soccer match in a live stadium. But in other stadiums around the world, you have the exact same match playing on a virtual like field, a virtual pitch, but yet you are there with your friends. Now take it one step further is actually having, for lack of a better word, sensor rooms where you are actually like, hey, I could be hanging and I may not know Sarah, and Sarah has the exact same like fandom as myself. So we're all part of the same tribe, but she's a world away. And now we're celebrating either together, like virtually, or with my friends in a almost like a suite enclosure with virtual, and so it goes blended in a way. So I think what you'll end up finding is the tribe will never, it's fandom. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about fandom. And to be able to find those other 97% of the Real Madrid fans that are not even there, man, they want to celebrate together. And trust me, it's St. Louis as well. When a certain soccer match comes on, there's certain bars that go absolutely bonkers in St. Louis, even though we haven't even gotten our MLS team live yet. That's the kind of interaction that we'll still have moving forward.
Well, I live around the corner from Amsterdam Tavern, so I'm glad to hear it's not going to go away. So that's good to know. I'll still watch soccer games there, I guess.
Yes.
But you know, you kind of gave Sarah a perfect segue, and you know, Sarah, take this where you want to. But Tim, you had mentioned VR, and so Sarah, I'm curious, like either from a VR perspective and or from just like, you know, a holistic and kind of media health perspective, what innovations do you see in the future?
Yes, so shared spaces, certainly not just physical shared spaces, but those virtual shared spaces. And so how many of you guys have played Beat Saber in VR, right? With, you know, these lightsabers, and, you know, in our office, we can have multiplayer, so several different people playing it at the same time. And I think that's going to be fascinating to watch with sports and esports. and also biogaming, you know, as well, the ability to control, to competitively play a game with your biometric data, whether it be your heart rate or your brain patterns. That will be fascinating to watch in the future. And I think the whole shift from not just tracking the data from our wearables, but actually interacting with them and seeing it not as something that's sequestered on your wrist as a flat data dashboard, but something that you actually train with and you can actually see it, like an ankle weight or something like that. I think that'll be fascinating to watch. I think seeing a trend from athletes and also what we call worker athletes. So by worker athletes, I mean firefighters, frontline healthcare workers, nurses, journalists, you know, people who are covering trauma. They're putting their body and their mental capabilities to the test day over day over day. And I think we'll hear more talk about, you know, some solutions for these worker athletes to improve their human performance. You mentioned the media diet. The Social Dilemma is a great documentary out there that all entrepreneurs should watch, because it asks some interesting questions about what's happening to our data. And if you don't know how something is monetized, then perhaps your data is, you are the product. And, you know, all of the items that we as entrepreneurs have to make darn sure that how are we properly protecting users' data. And in the future, I could see more and more the users' data, users monetizing their own data. You know, right now that's not necessarily happening, you know, with third-party people who are scraping our data and then selling it. But I see data marketplaces more and more, and they have them in China right now, and some of them are on the blockchain where you can have your own account, and you know, you get paid for what data that you decide to give up. And I think we'll see a shift in that in the future. From a VR AR perspective, the blurring of the lines between augmented reality and virtual reality, we're seeing that with what Apple is coming up with their rumored XR glasses that they're coming out very soon. But because the world is no longer flat, there's not going to be differentiations between, oh, this is virtual reality and this is augmented reality on your mobile device. All the hardware is coming out as one, and pretty soon we're not even going to need hardware. There's a device called Looking Glass. I would encourage all of you to see. We have one at our office, but essentially it's a transparent piece of glass that you can actually touch and manipulate. Some of the holograms are on this glass. So this whole notion of even a laptop, you know, or something that's not transparent, you know, will go away into some kind of heads up display that we wear, something that we look through. So we're really excited about that. But those is kind of peering around the corner at trends and preferences from people that we're excited about because we play in all those spaces.
That sounds pretty fascinating. I immediately thought of the Iron Man scenes, like from the first film, and about how it it was like crazy futuristic, and now you're like kind of describing it, and it's in your office. So that's already kind of crazy. I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the things you mentioned, which is the concept between, you know, if you can't see the product, perhaps you are the product, or your data, or that protection of data. And, you know, one of the things I found fascinating watching some of the videos on your website is, you know, the ability to kind of control what is happening like on the screen with your mind, and that is of course like a form of data. And so what hurdles have you encountered when it gets to either privacy or just kind of the hurdle of someone understanding what it is that's going on there? Have you experienced anyone who says like, well, like what's going on here? Because that's me, I'm raising my hand, you know, how does that work? And I guess, or like what hurdles have you encountered with around data, considering you are a wearables company in addition to AR and VR?
Yeah, and I should clarify, we're not a wearables company. So we work with other people's wearables. So it's BYOW, bring your own wearable. You can plug in any wearable. eventually and use Helium. So I'm glad you asked that question, because more people need to be having a conversation about data, right? And properly protecting it. And that's one of the things that early on, Helium collects a sensitive data set with biometric data that comes from your wearables. So we had to make darn sure that we had all of the protections in place in order to protect it, not only serving it on a HIPAA compliant backend, which might seem like overkill because we're not serving our products inside a hospital atmosphere, but it's not. In the consumer market, you need to go above and beyond what's required. Not only that, but GDPR, our products are used around the world. And so obviously data privacy policies between Europe and the United States are very different. So we had a crash course in that, and data protection officers, and not only the back end, but when you start dealing with military, there's an additional layer on that. So we don't monetize our users' data, and so that makes that conversation very, very cut and dry. The way we monetize our apps are through subscription services. So exactly that what you're paying for. But that's a great conversation specifically for young companies that don't have resources to either employ a data protection officer or get consult, and not just from a legal perspective, but from a cybersecurity perspective. And that's, there are some groups that are working hard to try to address that, but it's a conversation that we should be having a lot, because again, if it's not clear how this particular app or product is monetized, you might be the product.
I love that answer, and especially because you clearly did your homework when you were approaching this, and it's impressive to see the levels of kind of care that you went through to ensure that there was a kind of a path forward there. Like HIPAA compliance, for instance. That's fascinating. So really cool to see. The other thing I wanted to mention or just ask about, and this could be for either of you, but Sarah, it was something that you mentioned, is kind of the gamification of health data. I'm somebody who probably, like, that's big on my list of like why I would even do a thing, is so I can see a bar go up or down, or I can see a graph over time. And so how do you think that will continue? Like that kind of, I mean, it's already there. My phone tells me I did a good job because I walked a certain amount for the day, or whatever it may be. But that gamification, how far will that go, or is there something that would take that too far, or is there a limit to that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. To your question, is there something that could take that too far? Always, right? Anything that's developed has the opportunity to be used to the extreme. But for our purposes with Helium, imagine a world where the first course of defense when you think you need to take a pill isn't to take a pill, but is to take a digital pill and a digital therapeutic. And we're seeing that more and more digital therapeutics being just as effective as some kinds of medication. And I think we'll see providers prescribing those digital therapeutics even more. And as it relates to the gamification, there is also research, our internal research as well as external research, that shows that things are more engaging when you get feedback to know that you're doing it right. And so you combine that with the spatial computing environment. I mean, imagine lifting weights and never getting to see your arm to know, what is it doing? And so that's what we're trying to do with Helium, is to make that feeling mirror so that what has formerly been transparent has gravity, and you can see it and you can interact with it to know, am I doing it right? Not as a replacement for any kind of psychotropic medication, but as an adjunct and a self-awareness tool that you can learn to self-regulate your focus or your calm in order to get better.
and if I could jump onto that as well. I mean, at the end of the day, as humans, we're hyper competitive, and it doesn't have to be competing against each other. At the end of the day, it's also internally. And so, I mean, the research has proven so many times that the ability to keep going after goals, to keep going after things, to just keep moving forward, either as a society or just individually, is driven off of, in a way, this gamification kind of idea. And it could be, I mean, everybody's got a different position within gamification. I mean, for some of us, it may just to see a chart. Others may be actually going up against friends and seeing how they're doing and how we're doing. Others may be as a community-based kind of thing. Hey, my team, your team, or community, or other things. So I 100% agree with you. It can be taken way too far, but the flip is we will still find entrepreneurs that are going to find new ways of. It's almost like how do we surround the medicine with candy? You know, like there's going to be new ways. Unfortunately, though, and this is to go back to what Sarah was talking about, and I 100% agree. The data and social media has driven it in such a way, especially on social media, of the candy may be a little more disruptive to our insides than we are currently in the know on, type of thing. And that's okay. We'll figure it out, and it'll evolve. And it's like everything else. We'll continue to evolve and find new ways of doing things.
And I love that term candy, because that's so true. You know, we are what we consume, not only in our food, but in our media. And, you know, not to bash social media in any way. I use all of it. You need it to know who to vote for or who to vote against. You need it to know, is there a child molester living next door to me? You need it to know, is there a tornado about ready to hit my neighborhood? Like, you need it social to keep you safe. But left unchecked, like anything else, if we're eating too much candy, that negative media diet, that negative fiber, you know, you're hearing, you know, all kinds of negativity, and that's all that's coming in your brain. Well, then you have those ruminating thoughts at night, and you get one, you know, view of the world. But I agree, we need something to break up some of that candy that we like to consume because we need it to keep us safe. But over and over again, it can be harmful to our health.
It feels like we're quickly developing like a food pyramid for like esports, or a food pyramid for like the digital realm. There's been so many food metaphors here. I love it though.
But it's fascinating, because even like in Helium side of things can quickly move into esports, because esports is hyper traumatic as well. They are in the zone for way too long, and deprived, sleep deprived, food deprived, everything deprived, like, and emotionally deprived, like. So I do, yeah. It is this food pyramid that we've now hijacked into our world.
I love it. I love it. Well, all right. You know, thank you both for being here. And as a wrap up, like I mentioned, I'd love to hear if either of you, you know, or both of you really, I'd love to hear an ask that you would make of the Venture Cafe community. And so this can truly be anything from general to specific. We've heard kind of various people at these sessions. Sometimes they are very, very specific. I need a person to do this. Sometimes it's, hey, I'd love to hear more from you, or, you know, follow us, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, you know, what ask would you guys make of the Venture Cafe community?
You want to start, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. Download our apps, search the Apple and Android app stores. Helium is spelled HEALIUM-AR. Just search Helium AR. Give us some stars. Even better, give us a review. We would welcome that. Would also encourage you to check out some of the other companies inside Stadia, specifically for this cohort, that are doing some fascinating things. Prescient AI, Filmily, O2 as well. And I'll chime in with the others as I pull up my Slack, because I know that I'm forgetting some, because there are about 5 in total. But check out what they're doing, innovating at the intersection of not only AI, but the very air that you breathe. And, you know, fascinating stuff happening in the way of human performance.
I've got a couple asks. First one was going to be, yes, go download Helium. Go buy some VR goggles, and honest to God, it will blow your mind. It is so it is amazing, and it's not just like a showy thing. It literally is like life altering kind of thing. Second thing is going to end up being yes, and I appreciate you saying that, Sarah. Check out on our website, check out the companies that are in our portfolio, and the current cohort is always at the top. There is some amazing technologies out there, and if any of them could be of assistance to you as entrepreneurs, I mean, we're a global sports innovation hub. Like, our job is literally to connect good people to other good people, and that could either be entrepreneurs, industry, investors, that kind of thing. The third one is going to be more community related. I keep going back to, we are at a unique time. Like, I love that there's, and we're friends with this VC group. It's called Flyover Capital, and love it. My thing now is there is no more, everybody's flyover capital, like everybody's flyover. This is a unique point, especially for St. Louis, in that it doesn't matter if people are coming to us or going out or anything else. It's really, what are we creating here? And since we are no longer driven as much by having to be in a location, St. Louis is the best place to be starting these businesses, but also to be attracting customers. I mean, I can't tell you how many, from startups that we see that are like, hey, it's nice to be in St. Louis and we'll eventually come back, but I'm in UK, I'm in Australia, I'm in India. I'll still be part of Stadia. And the beauty is St. Louis is still, Stadia is part of St. Louis. And so I say, for all the entrepreneurs out there, keep building, leverage what we currently have in this virtual reality or virtual world, in a way of not having to go be in certain places, and then leverage the network too. I can't tell you how many people are from St. Louis, especially in sports and esports. It's fascinating how many senior leaders in sports and esports have DNA from St. Louis. Like, it's mind-boggling. That's the best part about it. Like, literally, they will help because we're from St. Louis. You will find in your businesses the exact same thing. So leverage all of those things. So mine wasn't as specific as much as, like you said, more general kind of driven type of thing.
Either way, it was a great answer. You both had fantastic answers. Thank you so much for joining. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Pretty fascinating to hear. And yeah, I will just echo it one more time. Download Helium AR in the App Store, and also check out Stadia's portfolio on their website. Sarah, Tim, thank you guys both for joining. Really, really fascinating conversation. As Angela mentioned at the top, the video recording of this will be available as soon as likely Monday. But yeah, thank you to all of the viewers for coming to the panel. And again, Sarah, Tim, thank you, and have a good rest of your day.